So maybe you're reading research and you want to understand the research papers that you're reading better, or maybe you're preparing to conduct your own research study and write a report about it. This presentation will give you a quick definition of research and explain the different parts of a research paper. So what is research and what are the different parts of a research paper? Research is systematic investigation into a phenomenon or an issue which involves data collection, analysis, and interpretation, following a method appropriate for a particular discipline. The general purpose is to establish new knowledge. And I want to emphasize the word systematic here, which means following a well-planned procedure and method. So not everything that you do to learn about a particular topic is research. In this course, we are following a narrow definition of research where you collect your own data and analyze your data to answer your research question. I want to talk about the different parts of a research paper. And the first part is the introduction. And usually it is for you to introduce the topic. But before you do that, you may need to find a topic. And you can ask yourself these questions. What are your general areas of interest? Why are you interested in the topic? For example, you may be interested in enjoyment and anxiety in the foreign language classroom. Then in that case, it is the topic for your research. And in the introduction, you need to introduce this topic. Another part of your research paper is called the literature review. Basically, in this part, you review and summarize what has been written about the topic. You can review the definitions about the concepts that you are investigating, how those concepts are measured, or the measurements of those concepts, and of course, the main findings that have been published about the topic. After you do that, you can explain how your research fills a gap in the literature. So a lot has been written about the topic, then how is your research new or contributing something new to the existing knowledge? Then also at the end of your literature review, you may state your research question. This just makes the purpose of your research really clear. You should ask or you should answer the question. What questions would you like to find answers to in your research? For example, your research question may be, is there a relationship between foreign language enjoyment and anxiety in the classroom? The next part of your research paper is the method section. This section is actually the easiest to write because basically you report or you write about exactly what you did to collect your data and to analyze your data. And you can include the following pieces of information. You may explain what type of research it is. Is it an experimental research study? Is it a descriptive research study? What kind of data you use? Is it mostly qualitative or quantitative? In the method section, you should also explain the participants of your research. Basically, you answer the following questions. Who participates in your research? Why do you choose these participants? And what is the basic background information about them? And then you need to describe your data and data collection. It is really important to explain what instruments you use to collect the data. For example, you may say, I used a 5-point Likert scale questionnaire with 21 items. I explained these terms in another video. You also need to explain how you collect the data, and then finally with the collection, what data you have. Note that I'm using the present tense here in the presentation, but in your writing, you should use the past tense. You need to also explain how you analyze your data. So how do you analyze your data? What do you do with the data exactly? How do you prepare it for analysis? What statistics do you generate from your data? Maybe you have descriptive statistics like the mean and the standard deviation and some of those basic statistics. And then what statistical tests do you use to compare data? How you analyze qualitative generated from interviews. So if you have qualitative data, like answers to an open-ended question or to interviews, then you also need to explain how you analyze the qualitative data generated from those sources. Okay, and then a finding section. So you have the method section and now the finding section, and you can argue that this is the most important section in your paper. Basically, you need to explain what your findings are to answer the research questions. So if your research question was whether there was a relationship between foreign language enjoyment and anxiety, then in the finding section, you need to explain whether you actually found any relationship. And if yes, you need to really describe in detail that relationship. After the finding section, you may have a discussion section. This is when you try to connect your findings to the existing literature. Did you find something totally different, or did you find something that is similar to the existing literature? What do your findings mean in your particular setting? So this is when you interpret your finding to explain your finding to the readers. What can you say about the topic you investigate that others may find useful for their context? And in this section, you can bring back the literature or the studies that you already review in the literature review to compare, so that you can arrive at more insightful knowledge for the readers. Finally, of course, you should have the conclusion. And in the conclusion, you summarize the findings. You may summarize the discussion of the findings, and you may include implications of the findings. Implications here means how people can use the findings from your research to apply to their context. So maybe teachers can use your findings to be more effective in their teaching. And you may also include suggestions for future research. Those are the main parts of the research paper. So let's review. You need to have an introduction, the literature review, research questions, method section, findings section, discussion section, and the conclusion. With a short paper, you may combine different parts into a bigger section, and I will explain in more detail also.